Hi. In my last video, I mentioned I was working on a new Murgetroid, new design of a Murgetroid, and I want to explain what I'm doing. But to do that, I think it's probably better to show you a little bit of a history of how the Murgetroid developed in order to appreciate what I'm doing now. So the very first Murgetroid I built is the Murgetroid 1, and it's shown here. Basically, it's these 22 by 22 LED panels mounted on a very large box which contained a battery and also a very large microprocessor board, probably about this big Arduino board, all located inside of here. And this worked very well. It had, because it's only one panel, it really only had half the resolution, 22 by 11, because it's rotating around the center. And it worked quite well with a battery. I modified the Murgetroid 1 to work without a battery by adding this pillow block bearing. The ball bearing, it turns out, has an electrical connection between the inner spinning and the outer, which allowed me to make this a connection, a power connection, and feed power into the box and eliminate the battery. In any case, the Murgetroid 1 worked great, and though it did use two microprocessors, I used a separate microprocessor for each panel, and I had the two microprocessors synchronized just by the fact that they turned on at the same time. That idea of using two microprocessors for each panel, or one for each panel, did not work very well because even though they were turned on at the same time, the two didn't synchronize perfectly, and so the two panels would have slightly different images at different times. Any case, I went to a new design, which was the Murgetroid 2. This Murgetroid 2 was different in a couple regards. First of all, the panel itself, though it was only one panel, or one on each side, I offset them from the center of rotation, which means that I was rotating much larger number of LEDs. And so I had a much wider display. Unfortunately, because I didn't have panels on this side, the strobing effect was very, very noticeable, particularly at the outer edges because of the wider range of rotation. So, in any case, the Murgetroid 2 also had an improvement in the microprocessor. I built it to mount on top of this this box. And it mounted on top of the box with a bracket, and the wires fed into the top here. The microprocessor inside of here is an ESP32. It's much smaller. I've shown it in the past. It's maybe a tiny little board like that. Anyway, it worked very well, and the only problem was that because the strobing effect was very noticeable, I decided to go to the Murgetroid 3, which you've seen has LEDs distributed across the entirety of the rotating surface. So there would be another set of LEDs on here and here. Any case, the microprocessor is incorporated in the box and is rotating with the rest of the panel. And I replaced the pillow block bearing for delivering power with the slip ring here that you see. And the slip ring has wires that allowed me to feed power into the microprocessor that's spinning, and also had an extra wire that I was able to use to take the signal from the Hall sensor, which senses the rotation of the Murgetroid. I fed that back into the control of the base located in the base of the Murgetroid. And this works very well. In fact, this is a duplicate of a box that I showed in the last demo, which is the Murgetroid 3. So to date, the Murgetroid 3 has the microprocessor spinning. So what I wanted to try to do was an experiment wherein the microprocessor was not going to be spinning and fixed in the base of the Murgetroid. And to do that, I had to get a totally different slip ring. So at this point, I'm going to show you what the new, this is more of an experiment, so I can't say that this is the direction that I'm going, but I'm exploring this because I wanted to see how how well it worked, and also the idea of having the microprocessor that controls the panels located in the base allows for easier program development of the Murgetroid. In any case, I'll show you now what I'm doing here on building this new variation of the Murgetroid. This is my test space, the bottom of it showing the microprocessor used to control the panel. There's room for another microprocessor here, which would be used to control the motor on the base. I've got ports here so I can connect the USB into the computer for programming. And because it'll be located in the base here, I will be able to program it without having to take off the hood of the Murgetroid and stop it spinning and all of that. Also coming in is the wires from the power supply, the 12-volt power supply that goes up into the spin ring up to the top head where there's that 12 to 5 volt converter. The 5 volts powers the panels. So everything is here except for the Hall sensor, which is used to monitor the spin rotation of the Murgetroid and also sets a point of start for text messages, the text that I display on the Murgetroid. And also the relay control box, which is used to set the motor speed and turn on and off the Murgetroid 12 volts, which would be controlled by the second microprocessor, which will eventually go into here. At this point, I've got everything wired up except for the motor control relays, which I'm going to hold off on. But what you can see here now is that I've got both microprocessors installed, the one for the control of the panels and the other for the control of the base. Wires running over to the relay box. In this case, I've got two relays, one to turn on and off the motor, and underneath it is one to control the 12 volts. Over here, we've got the Hall effect sensor, and it senses magnets that are mounted on the very bottom here. So every time a magnet passes by that thing, it sends a pulse to the microprocessor, which then counts how often it happens and gives me a revolutions per minute. My motor control speed is there, but once again, I don't have the motor control relays, which I'm probably not going to connect up for a while. In any case, this puppy does work quite well, and I'll show you that in a second here. This is where the box is installed now under the base. The processor box and the relay control box there. And all the wires are buttoned up and tied and should work just fine. So I just put the Murgetroid together. I screwed the microprocessor box into the base and I mounted the LED panels to the top of the box there, as you can see, and I'm going to turn it on for the very first time as a full unit, and we're going to see what happens, and it should be interesting. So to do that, I come over here and I just flip that switch. It's good. It's spinning a little too fast. Keep going. It's good. It's in its power up POR state, and it's definitely working. Now it's not spinning as fast as I would like it, and that's because the motor's a little weak in the panel, so I'm going to give it full power here. That's as much as it can do without the hood. I've yet to see if I can put the hood on this thing, but for certain it's working. And let's see, very little vibration, which is excellent. So I may have to modify the infinity cube, but we'll see.